put into the initial.
Sorry, I forgot. I wanna record the meetings.
Okay, the version that is in the initiating group folder is what Brian submitted at the convention. And that was the final draft, but in his previous draft was his proposal to extend supporting membership to long-term Greens, people that have been registered for 2 years, which of course we adopted by consensus at the last convention. So I've the two suggestions I've made so far are that and something regarding national. And I think it's really important that we keep that 24-month qualification. If not, and Ellen has suggested to me, we could even reduce it to a year
I
because
think that
the
I
that
think that
that
there's broad consensus about the 24. I was
okay. So
broad
so
consensus.
just
That's
so
not
just
even.
so you know that that's not in the original proposal. So I had to submit a friendly amendment to that effect.
What I would
Now,
suggest, I mean, since you and
so
Brian
I
developed the initial bylaws, is for you to go and adjust it in the initial proposal. Because
okay.
and just make a note that it was adopted by consensus. I mean, that's not a contentious issue.
Okay, so I'll talk to Brian about that, but I'm trying to figure out then whether I'm more the initiator or a responder here.
I think that you're more
Eh,
in the initiator because you developed the initial bylaws with Brian.
Okay, well I'm happy to do it that way, uh, and uh,
Well, my aim is really to take the set of bylaws that Brian proposed. I saw the document. I don't think I saw your amendments, Dan, although now I'm recalling that I did see them listed in a file. Because I like the general framework of it. So I don't think of it so much as a taking sides for or against it as, okay, let's take this and all of us determine, are there areas where we think we would like to see something changed, and how many other people would agree with that or disagree with that. So I'd like to go into the convention, if it's at all possible, with just about everybody saying, okay, this is how we'd like to see this document look when we vote.
Totally. So that's, I don't know if you're familiar, Alan, maybe I should go over how the process works. There is an initiating group proposes something. Then it's going to adjust that initial proposal with that to a 24-month 40-member qualification. And then there is a responding group that offers amendments, friendly amendments. What about this? What about that? It goes to like a wider group, which is what we need to bring in, a wider group of folk who say, oh yeah, no, that's a good idea. That's not a good idea, blah, blah, blah. And then so we can come up with a more consensus process. If there are sticking points, it goes again through the like an initiating group, a responding group, and then a final larger group. So hopefully out of that, we will have a consensus document going into the convention. It could be that there might be one or two, like option A, option B, where there is no agreement, and that would be, I guess, voted on at the convention.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I got the general idea of what John was proposing. I'm reserving judgment as to how well that process is going to work, but I get the general idea. Yeah.
I agree.
It's a really good process for us to adopt. Also, to like develop a strategic plan to do this and to do that. And since it's a new process, it's going to take us a little bit to really get it down and for people to understand how it works and to tweak it really too.
And that's why I agree with Ellen that I'm a bit skeptical that it's going to achieve a broad level of participation by the middle of next month. I think that most people that show up at the convention, unless it's just one of those conventions with 10 people, there's going to be a lot of people there that have never seen it.
Yeah.
But hopefully we will get to a document where, we agree on like 90% of the things, and there might be one or two sticking points.
Maybe. And with that said, I'm going to leave the call because I've got to produce my radio program. But speaking from my experience with Brian, the general principle of the proposal was to define the role of the party officers as they are in the in statute. Basically, as the business managers of the political party and the nonprofit corporate type of functions,
You know,
managing the money and et cetera, and to not and to specifically decline to appoint them as a political leadership.
well, let me, and I replied to that in Alan's document, and I encourage you to read it, to read
You
my comments, Alan, Dan, because I agree. Leadership is really something that people rise into leadership because they get respect. They, you know, because of the work that they do and respect. It's not something that is appointed. It's something that's really earned. But we will need spokespersons. Like if the media or somebody needs to do something with the Green Party or an endorsement or something, there needs to be someone who is kind of designated as the group that speaks for the larger group. And so there are issues like that. Also, if there is a legal issue, like a legal problem, you know, the officers are the fiduciary. So there's all of that legal financial responsibility, and that's the fiduciary part of the steering committee. It's not just a matter of just managing the money, because even in managing the money, you're making decisions. You know,
That's an example of the type of business function that I was talking
yeah.
about.
But I think it's more than a business function. I really do think that there is the coordination is really important. And it doesn't mean that it's a leadership. The leadership.
Well, we're getting into the nitty gritty of differences here.
Yeah.
Dan, if you got a minute before you leave, I just wanted to ask you, are there areas I know you read my response. Were there areas of that you think are especially problematic from your standpoint?
I can't remember exactly what I said.
But nothing struck you as, gee, that's no go that you can remember.
Well, number one, the concept of the idea that there has to be a way to punish cells and to punish members, I think is counterproductive to write anything like that in there. And let me give you an example of something that I think Natalie was aware of this in 2020. We had these two examples of these, like what we'd call extreme cases that you don't really follow the rules to the letter. There was one guy that filed to run for president. He was obviously a joke. He took a picture of himself with a Donald Trump haircut, and everything he wrote was just a joke. So we didn't put him. We just didn't deal with that. He obviously wasn't a serious candidate. There was another fellow who lives in Eugene. You may know him, Michael Hijazi, who is I believe that he is mentally ill, and he had criminal charges against him. And he filed to run for office. He wanted to run for Senate or something like that. And once we realized his background, we decided, well, no, he's not really a candidate. We didn't need permission to do that. And by doing that, we didn't run the risk of any consequence. There was no one that was going to object to do that. It was just the right thing to do. And that's a different kind of thing than acting against people that are serious party members and acting as party members doing their own thing.
But
Okay.
you know, the thing that there needs to be also accountability.
Let me finish though. When you write in statutes or bylaws that say, oh well, the central committee or whatever can take these actions, that sits there almost as an invitation for them to do it,
Well,
and to come up with reasons to do it. And I do believe that has happened.
Okay, you answered my question.
Yeah. So from your point of view, I'd say we don't really need to say something like that. And it's better that we don't, because the subject of doing that is that's something that really should not happen unless it absolutely has
ideally to. But you know, people do bad things, and so there needs to be a clear system for accountability. If it's not clarified, it's going to be a mess in the future again. And it just really, it's basically personal responsibility and group responsibility for their actions.
And who gets to decide who's bad? That's the
The
problem.
majority of the people, the
Well,
majority.
again, I think we're getting into areas that are going to be the harder ones to come to agreement about, and Dan doesn't have the time to fully answer every objection we're going to bring up, or we might bring up. So if he's going to leave, we should probably just talk about ourselves to see where we disagree with anything. So as we form the response, it can be something that at least a few of us are behind, and then see if we could tackle the bigger things.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, Dan.
Yeah, Bob, I'm going to type in the chat. My program airs on KEPW, well, KEPW 2:30s on Sunday. It's 97.3 FM. I've been thinking about talking to Cork and playing in Corvallis too. Excuse me, Corvallis.
I put the link to the document where I put the comments to Alan's.
Yep, I've seen them.
Okay,
I've
you
seen the
read my
documents.
comments.
I haven't read. No, I haven't read them yet, but I know
Okay,
where they're
okay. Just wanted to make sure that you had that.
at. Okay. All right. See ya.
Bye, thank you.
That particular area of defining the responsibilities of the state party committee is the toughest one. And, everybody's, I don't know that there's a satisfactory solution to that, but we'll try to come up
That's
with the best we can.
unfortunately, that's society. I mean, people do bad stuff. And when they do bad stuff, what's our recourse? Anyways, I don't want to go into negative because, we do have specific examples that we can bring up. But, if people didn't behave in aggressive, abusive ways, we wouldn't have an issue. It's really a personal behavior type of thing. What can I say? Should we go through the document, or do you want to do that?
If you think that's the best way, or we could start with the areas that you think are particularly important to look at in case we run short on time.
The most important thing I think was
because I haven't looked at any of your comments.
Okay,
well,
so what I
maybe
did, I did do some changes. The things in the changes are in red, and basically it's like you mentioned about finding a way to resolve, when there's conflict or disagreements, how do we resolve those? And I did put that, we're piloting this large group consensus model, and I do feel that it is a good model. I mean, there needs to be some way to channel differences and to talk about them, and so having this initiating group, a responding group, a broader group. Do we reach consensus? No, we don't. Let's go again. We reach consensus on this, but not on these two issues. Can we go again, see if we can find, that brings, at least the process by which, we can resolve, discuss these things, which we haven't had. It's always ended up with this, it's on the individuals, and then it ends up at the convention, which is just the worst place because it's only a very condensed period of time.
Yeah. And everybody feels rushed.
Yeah, and there is no possibility to come closer, right?
And the folks who have not been involved in those discussions suddenly feel like, God, this is a lot to process, and I don't want to sit through this.
Yeah, and they also have already taken sides, and they have, they're stuck in their position. There hasn't been an effort to understand the other side and why, and I understand. Now I get it, right? So to allay their concerns. So I did put things about, finding a process or using a defined maybe in the bylaws it should be a defined process to resolve conflict. For example, to resolve, mentioning in the bylaws a process, right? And then that can be added as a rule.
Right.
So the rule can be changed.
And making it kind of generalized that state committees should adopt a process of conflict resolution that's more formalized or something like that. But because I don't know if this particular model is the best one, but I do think we need a process. I guess that's where I have two minds about it. I see the need for a process, but I also feel like this particular process, or maybe any process, may be very time consuming for people to plow through the back and forth over and over.
I think that John is trying to use this software Airtable to go through it, and he's he's explaining everything in a way that's so technical and so techy that he's losing a lot of people.
Mhm.
But
I didn't want to. I downloaded the Airtable and signed up, but I don't want to learn one more platform.
no, it's not difficult.
Resisted.
It's just that he's using, and I mentioned to him, he's using items, artifacts. And so when you go to the folder, it's difficult to follow because it doesn't. Anyways.
Anyway, so we do need a process, maybe this or an adaptation of some kind, maybe that process. But I think it's a good idea to put in the bylaws that we should adopt the conflict resolution process.
It has to be clarified and established, and this is what we're going to do. If we need to change it, it's in a rule or a guideline, so it can be.
I guess especially where this ties in is, even in Dan's comments on my response here that he wrote in an email, he's conceding, I don't know if he was aware of this, but he's conceding that a state committee would have to use some discretion on handling problems with cells in the organization. And once you give them that discretion, it's hard to know how far does it go. You can't define everything that can possibly come up. So I think it may be a good solution to look towards when there is a conflict between the state party committee and anyone else, there should be a process that one or the other can take recourse to bring it to a resolution.
I agree.
Yeah, there may be cases you can solve it just through talking about it, but it sounds like some of these became just nobody was happy with the outcome.
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of it is anyway, I think it's a complex issue, but because it ties in with, for me, it ties in with two things. The first one is using verbal abuse and personalized attacks and things that are conflict driven, that drive conflict. That needs to be very clear that we don't accept that in the party. Like, we can have these agreements and be respectful. That's something that is no bullying. And the other issue is, how do you integrate minority views or diverging views within the party?
Yeah.
That will never be resolved 100% satisfaction. I think you and I talked a lot about it. So this is what
yeah, Dan is obviously, and I guess Brian too, but Dan is obviously leaning towards the maximum of, what's bad about having different points of views, that just let everybody do their thing. But I don't know. Again, it's hard to draw the line. How much divergence is good, and when it becomes a matter of new people coming in and saying, hey, I don't know what this stands for. Why would I join an organization that has no
how can you put your message out if you don't have a coherent message? Yeah,
that's exactly what I mean. It's fine to say, okay, this party is open to disagreement and trying to resolve that, but it's never going to resolve anything if it doesn't.
Well, my perspective and what I keep on mentioning is, we can arrive at a majority consensus view, try to integrate as much as a minority view in it in good faith.
Yeah.
And then at some point say, hey, this is a majority view, and list the position of the minority. I mean, there is no problem listing there is a minority. These are the two positions of these two minorities. Please go and read them. So
one thing if you don't mind, I'd like to back up to something you said about bad behaviors. I think in the cells, if we adopt a cell structure, the solution is that if there's abusive behavior, people will just leave that cell and it will become marginalized or die out. But in the larger party, I do think abusive behavior like cross cells or at the convention or with the state committee, all that stuff, you do need a way to resolve conflict and bring it to a close.
Yeah, and if somebody insists on calling somebody liars or, you know, hysterical or, you know, being a verbal abusive, we have adopted moderation guidelines, and those should be adhered to. I mean, like, it's a personal behavior. We cannot, there's nothing we can do except just disassociate. The problem is if you have a larger cell and somebody comes in and is verbally abusive and just kind of drives it in, all of the work that cell has done can completely dissolve.
I would leave that up to the cell to determine what process they want to use for conflict resolution.
Yeah, totally. The cell will do, but it's, you know, it's not always so easy because, you know, you build up a cell, you build a work, and somebody comes in and they become abusive, volunteers leave, right? And so all of the work that this cell or group has done is going to leave. So it's going to be really important to have best practices that we can hand down to cells on how to manage situations like that.
Bob, did you have anything to say? You've been quiet.
Yeah, I think conflict resolution has got to be central to whatever is put together, because obviously that's the whole reason it's being addressed at this point. Is there's just huge conflict, and I really think it's just the rancor is driving people away from the party. So if we can find a way to resolve conflicts, that would be great.
Yeah.
But also, I really think that we need to we need some kind of just getting together and hashing this thing out, because we need something to find something like Cornell West to cooperate around, to get people that've got disparate views on other things to cooperate on something that we can agree on. Because if we don't get that, this party is it's just going to be more infighting and more infighting.
Yeah, let's focus on so this is so you mentioned in your response some of these things, and what I did in your response, Alan, what I did is format it so it's a little bit easier to read, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because yours was a little bit legalese and it was a bit hard to follow for somebody who's not legalese. So I put 1, 2, 3, ABC, etc. Right? And statements or actions that conflict with the parties, like a probable cause, could be defined one as statements or actions that conflict with the party's fundamental values. And I put including, for example, reports of abusive behavior as outlined in existing moderation guidelines. Right? And
I would just make that I would take out the including, for example, and just make that a separate thing of defined as this and abusive behavior and or misleading descriptions. So those would be ABC there.
I like this, you know, I think it looks, it's good. So because cells can take positions that are really very, like transphobia, for example, it's against our core values. But you could also have a chapter that's just bad-mouthing other people constantly.
Oh, yes, certainly. I just think those are two different things.
Yeah, so you want to put like A, B, C? Yeah,
A being the 4 pillars, 10 key values, B being abusive behavior, violating moderation guidelines, and C using a misleading name.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'm totally fine. I just didn't want to change completely your document, which is why I put it in red.
I don't mind it changed. Putting it in red helps because then I know what you did change.
Yeah.
We can talk about it.
And here, what I was doing, essentially, my version number 3 would entail special conditions for a cell to qualify to make endorsements. For example, the cell would have to provide means for all members of the party with electoral blah 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 to participate in endorsement decision. Totally. And I put here, these are some of the processes that we kind of have developed, right? So we could always link. So I think that the bylaws is a skeleton document, and then it can link to guidelines rules that are
Hmm.
much more flexible, that can be, I put the link to this document in the chat.
Yeah,
Um,
I got it in front of me on the other side of my screen.
Yeah, so this would allow, I think, so that's the idea. Bylaws as skeleton as possible, because those are not going to change very often. And then rules and guidelines that can change to provide more flexibility and the growth of the party.
Yeah, I
That's
did
all.
not mean this response to be a copy of the bylaws. It's more a commentary on
Yeah.
his bylaws.
Yeah.
And if we can come to a lot of agreement, then we can draft a different version of the bylaws.
Totally. And we can highlight, these were the areas that there was no agreement, and these are the areas that we need to review at a convention, for
Mhm.
example. Okay, so, remedies for the above problems, principle of open discussion and debate on issues. Greens who oppose the cell's view can form a cell around the opposing position. I think that we also should have, because what you're offering is like, okay, you don't agree, form another cell or leave, right? But there could be also a way to, hey, let's try to go through some process of, use a process for consensus.
Mhm.
Or and so that's what I put in the bylaws, mentioned that there needs to be a process established and clarified, in
Yeah,
early
yeah,
guidelines.
I like that the state committee should adopt a formal process for resolving issues of any issues really, but use those examples of abusive behavior and whatnot. And
Do you
then,
want to put here the SCC and
Good morning, Felipe.
hello? Somebody new?
Oh, yeah, Felipe's in now.
Felipe is also very involved. Felipe, why don't you introduce yourself to Alan and Alan to Felipe? And so here the SEC is tasked with the SEC and the convention with confirmation.
Where
Is
we-
tasked with developing a clear process.
Yeah,
A best practice with resources.
mhm.
And so
Or,
what I'm
you know,
gonna put,
recommendations and guidelines or something like that.
yeah, and I'm gonna take this out. And I'm gonna, okay, this out. What I'm gonna put here, I'm gonna put here a comment. We are piloting a large group processes. We're currently,
Yeah, okay.
okay. So Felipe, do you want to introduce yourself to Alan and Alan to Felipe? Oh, did I accept him? Yes.
I'm having kind of hard time listening, or maybe I have problem because I'm from my phone. I don't know. You can hear me.
We can hear you now.
You sound like a broken to me.
Why don't you just disconnect and reconnect, because it's on your side.
Okay, let me try that. Got it.
So let me just introduce you to Felipe while he tries to reconnect. He is from República Dominicana, a retired math teacher, very involved in politics in República Dominicana. He's an American citizen. He's a Green Party member. He just came on this past year. He's very enthused about the Green Party. He's now a member of the state coordinating committee. And he is like, he's an experienced political organizer, actually. And he's took charge of ordering merchandise, but he's also really very keen on developing a strategic plan. He wants to take that as his project because he recognizes that we need a paid organizer, we need serious fundraiser. I mean, fundraising, like we need a serious infrastructure to grow the party. And so, and we cannot do that unless we know what we're doing and where we're, unless we have a plan. So he's going to take that on. And hopefully we'll be able to get to that after resolving these internal or organizational structural issues. He's really nice.
I like nice people.
He's super nice. I really like him.
Hello, Felipe.
Hello, now I can see you and hear you very well.
Hello.
We sound good now?
Can we see
Yes.
the picture?
Yes, and there.
There.
Well, now I'm on my computer, that's why maybe. Hi, I'm Felipe, and as you may already know, I'm part of the Green Party.
Yes.
For some reason, they elect me to be part of the committee, and here I am. Today, I thought that we had the media meeting, and then I realized that that wasn't going on. And then I checked my Facebook and noticed that Natalie invited us to this meeting that you guys are having right now.
Yes. So what we're doing is we're using John Quetzalcoatl Murray's large group consensus model to try to go through the bylaws and review the bylaws so we can arrive hopefully at a consensus document getting into the convention. And so we're using as a starting point the proposal by Brian and Dan from last year with some modifications. And so and we're hoping to hold a series of meetings, invite people to participate.
Okay.
And Alan and I and Devin are kind of leading the way into a responding document. And so right now what we're doing is we're going over the responding document that Alan wrote. We had some conversations and we're kind of finalizing to put the final version of the document, the responding document, online. And then we're going to really try to promote it to get people to participate. I'm going to be calling people, wide participation.
Yeah, well, I think I read already on piece. I'm being busy reading from the 2021 when Brian posted the suggestions, and I make clear my because I don't know that much the history. I posted my concern, and based on my concern, I think. I don't know. I don't know how to proceed myself. I would suggest that first, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, Bob, congratulations on your marriage. I hope everything is going well. We haven't talked since.
Oh,
and for good reasons.
Going great so far.
Perfect.
Any photos of your wedding?
Yeah. So,
well, very happy that you seem very happy.
I definitely am.
Yeah, a month in, you better be happy or there's big trouble.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
anyway, my position, you guys know it. I posted there, and based on that, I will I don't know how to say that. I will say I won't take part on this because of my position. My position is clear. I think maybe it's the wrong time or something like that, but which I agree with that. We need to do something to improve and to make the party function and grow. But I don't know if we have done everything that we can with what we have to be able to achieve the goal, which is unclear at this point because we don't have an annual plan. We don't have a plan to follow. Everybody has an idea, and I don't know. The idea of changing the bylaw or changing the structure, which is what we're trying to do, without having a plan where we're going, kind of like they don't match. I think it's like one need to be first than the other one, and that was my concern. And I don't know what to say.
So I replied to you, Felipe. The problem is that we cannot even agree on a strategic plan because we don't have a process to come up with those agreements. And it's been really hampering decision making. But I totally agree with, I mean, that's something that I've been saying for quite a while. We need to have a strategic plan. As you know, we proposed something, the Women's Caucus proposed something back in 2019. It just didn't get traction because other stuff. So we need to resolve this other stuff because it's like such an obstacle. And it's really these internal conflicts of how we resolve, how we make decisions as a party while allowing the autonomy of individuals and the cells. So that's that conflict, right?
Yeah.
But I think that my idea was, let's resolve this because it's hanging over us, it's killing us. And then starting in September, start the process to develop a strategic plan.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I welcome the idea. And again, my only concern that maybe we need something first, like a where we want to go. Because if any industry, any corporation, any business want to do something to restructure the institution, most likely they have a plan first. And then they, based on that plan, what is the structure that going to support this plan so we can achieve it? And that was my concern, but I welcome the idea, either or. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead with the plan. And Alan, I read your reply, interesting, to me make a lot of sense. The only concern once again is that little thing that I have there. Other than that, I'm fine with everything so far.
Well, it's good to meet you, Felipe, and
pleasure.
I'll introduce myself briefly so you know a little bit about me. As you can tell, I'm older as well. Can't tell quite how old you are, but I see gray in your mustache.
Yes.
I've been in and out of the Green Party a bit for a while. I was very involved for a few years back between 2015, 2018. And when I left, I was on the state coordinating committee. And when I left, I wanted to do some background research on the history of the party, because I was thinking, okay, we've had problems in our party here. How did they intend this to go forward when they originally set things up? What did they anticipate happening? Did they make any provisions for dealing with the kind of conflicts and problems we were having? And I used to be a political scientist, so I did some research on that and wrote up a book on it. So I'm coming back to it mostly because of Cornell West. When I left, it was because I could not see a way to move forward for the party. It just seemed like we were shrinking and didn't have any, we could go on the same path and not see anything happen. But I think when Cornell West decided to seek the nomination, it gives us an opportunity. There might be a lot more interest, and we should do some house cleaning to be prepared for that. So that's where I'm coming from.
I see.
And Alan has a great podcast. Why don't you, if you have a link to that, Alan, why don't you put it on the chat? Because
well, you can look for it on YouTube or any podcast. It's called Political Dharma, DHARMA.
Really amazing. There are a couple. There's the one that I saw recently was about the history of DSA. Super interesting. Go and check it out. And if you have any other, Alan, that you would highly recommend us to check out, just send a post.
Now, the more recent ones, I've been focusing more and more on the Green Party, so those are coming up more frequently.
Yeah.
Before that, I spent a lot of time just giving my personal opinions on political philosophy generally, not of interest to too many people.
Well, they're always thought-provoking. Felipe, I wanted to respond to you. If you want to come up with some idea about how you would see the party come forth in terms of a plan, even if it's, hey guys, this is what I would see as an initiating kind of plan, propose it and send it to the convention and invite people to participate. I'm all for it. Like having an idea, okay, how do we see the party in 2028? Because 2028 is going to be the year where ranked choice voting is going to be applied statewide if we pass it in November of next year. So I think that having a 2028 plan to 2028.
I'm gonna grab some water.
Yeah, I think that having a plan to 2028 would be awesome. So if you want to start that process and put your ideas down, call people, individual people to get, hey, what do you see? Whatever. Make a call for a meeting for people to come on and suggest a plan. All for it.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing that already, not talking to people. I'm trying to get partners because annual plan is something where large groups should be involved in. It's,
Yeah.
you know, like I can start with the idea, throw
Yeah.
something that going to be totally unacceptable so people can, because I learned a little bit here that when you have an opinion that is unacceptable, everybody jump into it, had an opinion. But if you got a good idea, people just read it and pass on, and then there are no that much interaction. So using that,
I'll give you interaction. I'll give you
Yeah.
positive interaction because I'm really interested in that strategic plan. That's what I've been trying to get to. It's just that we're tripping over our feet.
Somebody's got to get the ball rolling.
because we don't have a plan. That's why we are in this situation. I think.
I'm with you. Let's do it. If you want to use one of these upcoming meetings to present like a skeleton, this is how would you see it? I'll promote it. I need to send me your wording because we desperately need to send the mass mail out to folk, a mass
Mhm.
email. So send me your wording, any dates or ideas, just put it out.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm on it.
Okay.
Putting something together and waiting for the I don't know, like a pick up interest on the other members.
I am.
But yeah, well, one, and now we are two of them because
I think
I don't
Alan
know.
might too.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you-
it's just hard to track everything that's happening.
yeah, it's
I think that's part of our problem. New people come in and they don't know what's going on where.
I'm lost. And by the way, I wasn't in the IO email box, and now I learned that wow, it's a lot of stuff going on there, and my
Sometimes too much.
my inbox is packed with stuff like
So,
wow.
what I-
Usually for controversial stuff. And I'm thinking like, wow, if we use all that energy to promote growing and moving forward, as opposed to getting stuck there on the same thing. Since this first day I came to the first meeting on the Green Party, the same thing over and over and over. And I think maybe one of the reasons why we're stuck right there is because we don't have a plan.
I agree.
Well, I think part of the problem is that people have different plans somewhere in their head, and they're using these bylaws as a way to make sure their plan can be implemented in the easiest manner.
Yeah, and that is a personalistic way of acting, and I don't know.
Well, it's inevitable.
Anyway, yes. Let's go back to your topic, guys. I'm sorry to come here and interrupt what you were talking about.
No, it's good to hear from other people about this, because just like you say, what is everybody else thinking? It's nice to know. Is anybody interested?
Hey, Bob, I muted you because you were breathing into the microphone and the microphone was picking that up. Just wanted to let you know. Okay, so what we're doing is trying to come up with a coherent responding proposal so that we can get the ball rolling about these two proposals, kind of so we can get rolling about having something going into the convention and we can then promote it. So any of you want to add something, mention something? No? Okay.
I think the next iteration of this response will be a little cleaner.
Yeah.
And easier to follow.
So what I would do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the AC to the state coordinating committee because people are going to get lost about what the AC is, but people recognize the state coordinating committee.
But I started using a general name, and then I thought afterwards, maybe if the name is the problem, just say the state party committee. Because defining what how far they are administrating and how far they have to coordinate is part of the problem. So I think just leaving it a neutral name would make it easier to go through these documents.
Sure. Okay, so you mentioned that, so we're talking about, okay, cellular thing, and what happens if there is one or two cells behave in ways that are inappropriate or counter to our values or abusive or anything like that. And so we reviewed that this first part, that we will have a best practices for conflict resolution. And then I would shift initiative for sanctioning a cell from the AC to any 3 members of the party. So there is, again, a devolution of responsibility. So it doesn't sit on the state coordinating committee to do everything and to be a watchdog. And what I did here, because you just left it like that, is to adopt the large group consensus model. And that's why I said any 3 members of the party would comprise an initiating group by submitting a complaint through the large group consensus, allowing a responding group to form and respond, starting a process of rapprochement, consensus, and suggested next steps. If there is no resolution, the matter is presented to the state party committee, tasked with implementing the suggested next steps or taking an interim decision until next general meeting.
Yeah, that's simpler.
Okay, and this we can modify to make it even less specific regarding the initiating group or responding group. But I think that you know, if we don't want to adopt a large group consensus, but I think we can just leave it like that because it's very broad. I think it can be modified very easily. Sounds good?
Yeah,
Okay.
the general idea, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add it as black. This is
Oh.
what.
I guess one comment on that, because what Dan and his comments on this, it seemed like the reason I wrote this part about shifting the responsibility to party was to take away some of the authority of the AC to initiate something on their own, because I was figuring Brian and Dan are probably thinking the state committee has too much power, and I'm thinking, well, this is a way to bring it to the membership and also ease the responsibilities of the central party. But it sounded like in Dan's response to my response, he didn't really care about having a process for this so much as he just felt like bring it to the membership at the next meeting was sufficient. That's the impression I got. I'll have to talk to him about that, what he had in mind. And really what I'm trying to do is find a formulation that's that he would find acceptable as well, if possible, just to forestall any, you know, big fights at a convention.
So without speaking for them, I don't pretend to speak for them, but my experience with Dan over the past few years is his position is that there should be no process, that the cells and individuals can do what they want. They're fully autonomous. And he's not considering that there inevitably in human interactions, there will be disagreements. And so inevitably there will be some conflict or divisions or, you know, disagreements at some point. And how do we resolve those when it's not specified, ends up in a fight, because there is no process for conflict resolution.
Yeah,
And
he contradicted himself on this, and I want to talk to him about that specifically, because he is saying, on the one hand, something along the lines of what you say, but on the other hand, conceding that there will be cases where the state committee has to take action.
yeah.
And once you do that, once you open the door to that, I mean, everybody has to open the door to that at some point, because it has to happen in some cases. As soon as you open the door, then it becomes a question of how do you define the line of where they can and where they can't step in.
And I agree. I don't think that the state coordinating committee or the state party committee should be tasked with all of these stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's too much.
Yeah,
That's why I totally agree that it's 3 people from the party if they are like, oh no, and it can be 3 people from the steering committee, maybe. I mean, who cares,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
But
they just
not-
don't get to vote.
yeah, that's that I agree with that. But so anyway, so I think that a process will always come up. Like leadership will always arise. If you don't make it clear, it ends up in chaos. It's better to be clearly defined so people know how to engage with each other, so that you can resolve and not, disagree.
Hmm.
So I took out the green part was this part. Alternatively, the state coordinating committee or state party committee could choose to negotiate with those responsible for the cell to find a mutually acceptable solution. I think we should just leave it out. I mean, there's going to be a process. Even if the steering committee decides, hey, let's try to see if we can resolve it, I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah, okay.
It's just too much wording to, then again,
Yeah, it's implied that people are gonna be talking to each other and trying to figure out how to resolve this.
yeah. And because also you're putting back the state coordinating committee or the state party committee in the position of responsibility. And I think we need to move out from that. If a vote is scheduled, anyone who is responsible for the cell or one who is the opposing petitioners would be recused from voting. And I would take away the NAC member because again, it's kind of implied.
Okay, but that is the understanding.
Yeah, because anybody who's
So,
involved in responding or initiating.
I don't remember writing 2/3 the member at the convention. Did that change?
And again, I'm going to take the AC vote because if a vote is scheduled, anyone who is responsible for the cell or who is the opposing petitioners will be recused from voting. The vote will be at the convention by 2/3 of members at the convention. That's the existing bylaws.
Huh. That seems like a lot.
I agree that it's a lot. I think that what about, I mean, a majority might be just too little. 2/3,
Well, we're talking about resolving a conflict within the organization, and it shouldn't be like, it's not setting something in stone the way you do in a platform or when you make a candidate decision. It's kind of a matter you want to be able to deal with and move on quickly. So I don't see why it shouldn't be a simple majority. If the majority at the convention says this is the way to resolve it, that should be good enough.
could we say something, I mean, we could always choose an arbitrary number, like by 55%. So it's not just a minority by one person, but a clear majority.
Is that your concern, or is that a concern you're thinking other folks will have?
I think it's a concern other folks will have.
All right, well,
And
why
I'm
don't we
gonna
try
tell
to
you
go
why
with this?
There is good.
Go with the simple, I'm sorry.
Okay, simple majority.
If we do that, then we can see if they actually object to it or not.
Simple majority, okay. I'm going to put a note here so we can resolve and, hold on, simple majority. And I'm going to put here, number one, this would be after a process of conflict resolution. I agree that solve the problem and move on. And individual cells can continue doing their thing without being affiliated.
Yeah. Unaffiliated, the problem I have with that word is it's not clear how you unaffiliate somebody. I wanted to make it more specific, which is why I came up with delisting. Just take them off the party website. Should be enough because it'll be hard for them to access the members or show their, somehow officially recognized. Unaffiliated, not clear to me. Are you unaffiliating the people in the cell? Are you unaffiliating the managers of the cell? Are you unaffiliating the cell itself? The only sanction the main thing I was trying to get across here is we need to define what the sanction can be and make it clear what they have the power to do when they're sanctioning a cell. And I think just taking it off the website should be sufficient. Let them go off and do their thing as long as it's not something we're directing people into.
Anybody has any comments? Because I do have a comment, but I don't want to. So what I would do is somewhere that the benefits of affiliation are to be defined. At this point, it's just been listed on the PGP website. What about PGP website? And also, like their events and things would not be listed on email blasts, for example, or on Facebook groups belonging, like the official, right? So there's more than one thing. That's why I think that putting affiliation might be better, but defining affiliation, right? And we can say at this point, we suggest affiliation entails 1, 2, 3 benefits.
Okay. Maybe if we say delisting, but then define delisting as delisting from the website and from any announcements and all that included.
The thing is this, from my legal experience, the broader you make the term, the easier it is later to add, because if you just say this delisting and like 6 months down the line, we're like, oh, we didn't think about this thing. What are we going to do about it? Right? Whereas if you say affiliation and then have a document that defines what affiliation is, it's much easier to adjust it.
Okay, I'm just concerned that they're going to read affiliation as what Dan keeps saying, kicking somebody out of the party. I don't know why he has a bugaboo about that or what happened.
Because this is talking about a cell.
Yeah. But is unaffiliated mean the people who continue to participate in that cell are now,
I think the cell
now lose their voting rights in the party or something? Yeah, we need to make it clear what exactly the sanction is and how far it extends.
I think that it's affiliation of the cell. So the cell can be disaffiliated. We cannot do anything about people being registered Green Party.
I think the general idea, though, is we ignore them. We just don't include them in our.
Yeah, but what about, okay, we don't include them in our website. What about if they have an event? Are we going to list
What kind of an event?
A rally or tabling somewhere like the sunflower greens who oppose trans people are going to organize a tabling at the Hawthorne Fair. Well, we don't necessarily want to list that, but that's part of affiliation. It's that the party can promote the events of the cell.
Yeah.
But if they're not affiliated, we wouldn't promote those events.
Yeah, the general idea is we ignore that cell in any of our official communications.
Okay, so maybe here clearly, define what listing affiliation is in rules, guidelines that can be updated. Find the term that is more general in the bylaws. Maybe recognition.
Yeah, maybe recognition. I was thinking disowned, but that's a little strong.
Recognition. Okay. What if you, with your permission, and you have my permission too, what we can do is in the general document here for our response, we can just take away affiliation or listing and put recognition, right? And put a note that recognition the benefits of recognition need to be clearly spelled out.
Okay, yeah, what I was intending to do after we speak today is to go back to this document, clean it up, rewrite it a little, with our discussion in mind, and
Yeah.
then do a second pass at it.
Okay. Okay. What did I do? What did I do? Ah, shoot. Oh, okay.
Almost 11:30, it's like
Okay.
11:20.
Yeah, and so this here, I took out a whole bunch of stuff.
Where are we at?
This is a number 4. Brian's proposal requires the AC to record information about a new cell and publicize it on a statewide media. It would add that within a reasonable amount of time after the initial members apply to the AC. And what, you had something about 5 days to list on the website. And what I said, it's too much work. Like if
Mhm.
every 5 days we have to go and update, forget it. So I think that what I suggest is at least twice a month, the AC or its delegated representatives would update the website with updated listings of cells. So it's like twice a month I think it's totally reasonable.
A regular task, you're saying?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, I put the 5 days in parentheses with a question mark because I was thinking, I'm not even sure how to, the idea was make sure they do it in a timely fashion,
Yeah.
but
So this thing about being listed as a new cell and an established cell, I think that it's just I think it's too much minutia. I don't think that it brings anything additional. It just brings another administrative, bureaucratic listing that I don't think people need.
you may be right. I'll tell you why I put it there, which was if somebody creates a new cell, say it's an anti-vaccine cell, and it's going to cause controversy because people in the pandemic had strong opinions about it. So if you list it right away, that's already going to cause controversy. So a new category would be, okay, these are people that are doing something new. Now is your time to start objecting if you think there's a problem with what they're doing. And once you've passed a certain amount of time, okay, now we've really recognized you because nobody's objected. So I thought separating a cell that is brand new, nobody's had a chance to think about, from one that, yeah, people have had sufficient chance to make objections, made some sense.
Yeah, what we could do is we can put the name of the cell, contact information, and parentheses listing, and put the date.
The date, yeah,
Right.
and then do it in some order chronologically.
Yeah, or add the date by the listing, so people can see whether it is a new idea that may not have been a new idea. So
Okay. I'm all for simplicity.
yeah, that is still being developed, right? As compared to a cell that's been there for 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay, so a new cell, let me just kind of
yeah. I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but I'm thinking for the sake of people that newly come into the party and they're perusing this list of cells to join, and the first thing on the list says, yeah, we're against who knows what, feeding children or something. You don't want them to have that first impression of what the party's about. Well, something I did think was important that I want to get back to is having geographic names that imply you're representing a particular area. Like right now, we've had the Lane County Green Party, or the Green Party of Lane County, or whatever it's called, and now we have a Eugene one. And on the one hand, it's good for people to be able to get together on the basis of geography because they can physically meet each other. On the other hand, what I don't like is that any actions they take then become representative of that particular area, the greens in that area. Case in point would be the Lane County chapter, where they apparently drove out a lot of people and ended up being the only representatives of Lane County, even though a lot of people were Greens in Lane County and didn't, not only didn't agree with what they were doing with the chapter, but didn't like what they were doing with the chapter, were opposed to it.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah.
Can you repeat
Go
again?
back to the main point, which was not using terms that represent electoral districts and can be confused as representing the entire area of that name.
Okay, let me just add,
Well, I bring it
I
up.
know there's a big push on to do watersheds, grouping by watersheds, which is also a geographic grouping. The same issue. I mean,
Yeah,
anytime you form a group, you're gonna have, you know, what's association mean?
I wouldn't object to using a watershed. I just wouldn't make it a requirement that everybody belong to a group of the watershed they lived within.
so it's add something about avoiding to use a cell name that implies,
Representing all the greens of a geographic area.
But see, watersheds do the same thing though. I mean, it's, you know, it's still a geographic area.
I do, but it's not so much the geographic area as what you're implying about it. With the watershed, to me, it would be clear these are people who are interested in watersheds and the ecological implications of decisions made at that affect that, rather than this is just the greens of lower something basin, because you're thinking, well, okay, they could be talking about anything. But maybe that's what they're thinking. The watershed would be the basic unit of organization. I don't see the point of organizing around that.
so I have a couple of comments. The first one, I think what you're talking about, Alan, is avoiding to use a cell name that implies the cell represents all the greens of a geographic electoral area or district.
Yeah.
Because it's tied to the elections, it's tied to like ballot
Endorsements, it's in
Endorsements, yeah.
particular to endorsements.
tied to endorsements, ballot lines, etc. Right? I think in terms of the geographical area, the beauty of the watershed is it's actually a marketing thing in a sense. It's a marketing thing. I mean, we're the Green Party, ecological, so tying us more to the land, to how the land functions is actually a pretty neat idea that might have a lot of resonating with people. But we could also have cells that are like the lavender greens of Portland.
Yeah.
You know, like totally fine. So it can be issue. I mean, I don't think it would be anything, but the problem is like Green Party of Multnomah County, that immediately represents, okay, this is an electoral district. This is the ballot. That is more problematic, and that's what has led to some confusion. Like people, you know, look for, you know, the Lane County, for example, and they find the Lane County, which is not necessarily representative of the Lane County, and so people walk out because we've had that experience. People contacting us was like, "Oh, I didn't know," right?
No,
So,
that's the distinction I'm trying to make.
yeah, and I think that putting here electoral area or district tied to endorsements, ballot lines, you know, elections, elected officials. So adding here the electoral area. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but it extends a little beyond electoral, because is there a geographic district that doesn't represent an electoral district? I'm not sure, but if there were, then it still seems to represent the views of the people of that district. I'm trying to think of a possible example, like Greens of East Oregon. Would they really represent all the Greens in East Oregon? I guess maybe if you could get them all in one room, which you probably could. But it's not an electoral district except a congressional district maybe, but even there, I'd say, okay, clarify more what your particular interest is in having that cell.
So it's really, I mean, that's the part where I know that we're gonna have a lot of opposition about it. And
Yeah.
that's the part where, and it's hard because yes, if you're in a rural area, like, or trying to organize greens in rural area, Eastern Oregon, like coming up with like an Eastern Oregon Greens
Mhm.
group and trying to start like that might not be a bad idea, you know, and there is validity to that.
What I would do with that, and I
But
didn't,
I have two comments about it. The first one
Okay.
is what we can say is not using party, like Green Party, Pacific Green Party, Lane County, or Pacific Green Party, Multnomah County, because that is just really very official. So moving away from using party, but using greens, you know, is much more, oh, it's just more like a loose association, right? So you avoiding the name Green Party or Pacific Green Party in the name would be one way to kind of like make it a clear distinction. And the other one is encouraging like organizations, like for example, I'm trying to organize the Portland Greens. And so when I say, oh, let's organize Portland Greens, the way that I would suggest is that these larger denominations act more as a coordinating body to help smaller local cells to organize. But maybe it's not necessary.
my thinking about that is to make it something like a meetup, like Greens of Lane County meetup or social. Because then you can get people who are interested into one room to talk to each other more informally. And as you learn people's interests, then you would naturally gravitate towards cells. Like say we get to we say this is the Eugene Green Party meetup on this date and time, and we meet regularly. People show up and you think, oh, I want to work on Cornell West campaign. Well, you should join the cell Greens for Cornell West, or whatever it might be. You want to work on, you know, more bike lanes in your city. Join this or create a cell of, you know, Greens for bike lanes in Florence, Oregon, whatever it is. But rather than having chapters as a way to bring people together geographically, make them social groups that then are, you know, they're not making consequential decisions. They're just using the opportunity to get to know each other and maybe move the action-oriented people are ready to get involved into a particular cell or more than one cell. Of course, that makes it when you only have a small membership, if you got a lot of cells with, it's like you got to decide which direction you're going in. So you lose that sense of let's get together and create a priority for the people in our area. On the other hand, chapters were never very good at that anyway. People would bring ideas and then other people wouldn't be interested and it would just die.
I would just leave it like that. What I would do, because it's a, you know, we're not there yet. We can, in 10 years, we can review the bylaws. But what I would think is, in particular, avoid using Green Party or Pacific Green Party, because that's really an official name.
Hmm. Well, what if it was Green Party social meetup?
Yeah, but that would be a meetup. It would be really like a social gathering. It
Okay.
would be organized as a cell.
Yeah, so not using it, well, yeah, just not using a geographic name in a way that implies, which is what I said in there somewhere, that implies you're representing the Greens in that area.
Yeah, and I think by taking the party out, but leaving Greens, you know, or making it like a meetup, you know, Lane County meetup, that's a totally, like, that's a social, that's not, you know, it's very clear that it's a social organizing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would, I don't know if I put that in the bylaws, not to use the word party, but we could use that as an example.
I think that we should, because I think it's an issue. Oh, as an example in particular, or putting, for example, that's what you mean, for example?
Yeah, I guess I got too much going on in my head right now to clarify what I'm thinking. Yeah, because I can see on one hand it said Pacific Green Party, Lane County meetup. Not a problem. But if you could also say Greens Lane County Meetup. I guess it doesn't make a lot of difference. But I think it would be left up to this whole process of determining if a name was misleading would be what was in the bylaws. And then that would be where people would object. Hey, this seems to represent me in this district when what they're doing really doesn't.
Yeah.
So in a sense, we could use those as examples, but in the bylaws, just put in using misleading names that in particular seem to represent Greens who are not part of that cell.
You know, we could put, for example, avoid using Green Party or Pacific Green Party in the name unless it is clearly a cellular organization, e.g. PGP Multnomah Meetup.
Yeah.
If you don't put party in the name, though, what does the group represent? I mean,
you can-
anybody can say they're green. By not putting party in the name, you're giving them essentially the same status as somebody who's not really green.
Okay, let's just, I mean, it's gonna be up for discretion.
I mean, I could start the Green Fascist Party if I want to. And I mean, how are you gonna tell the difference between my Green Fascist Party and somebody else's Green Party, because it doesn't say party in the name?
Yeah, it's not a real clear distinction.
Yeah,
Should I just add something about avoiding to use a cell name that implies the cell represents all the Greens of our geographical area district,
Yeah, I mean, there's two things to
Parentheses.
do in here.
tied to endorsements, ballot lines, etc.
Yeah. The one thing we're doing is deciding what should go in the bylaws, and the other thing is providing explanations in a document like this,
Okay,
so that anyone reading it would have some sense of why we did this.
a separate
whatever your
guideline.
unifying principle is for saying that this is a group, this is an authorized group. You know, if it's based on the beliefs, well, then I'm going to have to be, because this group believes in the same foreign policy I do, but this group believes in the same vaccine policy I do. So that's two groups I'm in right there. This other group agrees on the same Social Security policy. So I mean, so I'd be in all these groups trying to represent my beliefs. You know, if you break it down by beliefs, you got that issue. And if you break it down by geography, then you've got all these different beliefs in one area stuck together into a Green Party. I don't see any way around it that there's just going to be this thing at the basis of whenever you form a group, you've got to say what the group represents.
Yeah, and that's why I suggested as an example that if people want to gather geographically, they should do it as some kind of social meetup or informal process, or maybe just an educational group where we're bringing in speakers and, you know, whatever.
So we're gonna have a problem with the chapter in Lane County. The name of it really is very specifically implies the organizing for the Lane County, and people go there thinking that, and so that's
But they did change their name.
the change. I don't have the organizational documents of that chapter. They've changed their name more than once. They've changed the name of the Facebook group. So I think that there is that's something that I don't know how we're going to resolve it. It's going to be, I just want to let you know, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of this is an issue that's going to be contested. And I think that the name needs to be clear, period.
Well, I didn't hear Dan make any objection to the way I had written it up here. So I'm hoping something in there is acceptable.
Okay. I think that, I think this is actually somewhere else. That's why I took it out.
How much time do you want to take today? How much time do you have?
Not for instance. Okay, this part. Why don't you just go through the things and
Comment.
comment. Comment and look. I mean, the rest looked pretty good. I think this whole issue of really important. I would just take away this issue of the leadership. Because what I mentioned is that, again, leadership is a personal characteristic. People rise as leaders. What we need to clarify is the issue of spokesperson, like representative, like representation. and I'm, and I think I may have put some things in bold and some comments. And this is, you know, what I mentioned is this is what needs to be defined. What is a spokesperson? So that is the part that needs to be defined. And I put a suggestion here about, again, the consensus view and listing the minority view. And this part I didn't have the time to reread. So if you want to go through that, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think we need to do a lot more thinking as a party about what leadership is and what a spokesman would be doing and not doing. If we can
Let's
settle
propose it,
on
let's
something like
propose
that.
it right now, because that's a sticking point, and that's one part of the reasons why we're having these disagreements. You know, we have a meeting scheduled for Monday evening. I could review the rest of the document. You can take and leave whatever, you know, you can edit, because this is your own document, Alan, and we can take it from here on Monday evening.
Okay, so is it okay if I just do a cleaned up document? I might
Yeah,
changes.
but don't do it as a PDF. Leave it as a Google Doc so that people can
Okay.
comment.
The reason I did PDF because I didn't want to see people making changes that I couldn't track very easily.
The thing is that the way with the Google Doc works is, and let me just show you something real quick.
I understand how it works, but I'm thinking it's one thing for you to be making comments. It's another thing for 6 people to make comments and be arguing out points on a document where you have to read through it all and write up a reply.
Oh, yeah.
But
Too
I
time consuming.
don't think we're gonna get too much of it. What you can do is also, when you go here into the version history, you can see the version history and you can see the changes in the documentation. So you can always bring it back
Alright.
to a previous document. And this is the initial version, or the current version is August 12. So you can track the changes. What you can do is also let me show you, because this is actually important. This is where the document is. What you can do is you can new Google Docs, create and share. And what you can do is, whatever. When you update the document, you can actually update this document without changing the link.
Yeah,
You see what I mean?
I've used Google Documents.
Yeah, there's a way to change a document without changing the link. So you can replace the document using the same link. There's a way to do that when you upload the document. You can replace this document with the same link,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
that link is out.
I used it before and I was trying to forestall some problems I've had with Google Docs. So I made it a PDF, so it forced people to either talk about or write out what their general reaction was before they started going line by line. Because I want to get down to the main points without nitpicking everything.
Okay. Okay.
But I get it.
Thank you very much. Felipe, Bob, any comments or anything else that you finish in the comments?
Well, I don't want to jump into that. I need to be more familiar and go back and read that document. What is especially the goal? So Brian has an idea, and what's the goal? What he want to accomplish? And to me, the way I saw it, I just read it one quickly, was to minimize the power of the SEC or reduce the power of SEC, something like that. And that's what I understand. And he came with the idea of self, which is may or not be a great idea. I don't know. I don't remember the minimum number of members that you need to have a cell. I think it's 3. There you go. And then thinking about all those possibilities, imagine that I'm in a large group. I have an idea. Everybody bring my idea down, but 2 more agree with me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave that group and start my own cell now, because we agree with this little thing, which is a little insignificant maybe point, but I feel hurt, and now I'm going to move and make another cell. And then what we're going to do is, with 60 members in a group, sooner or later, we're gonna have, instead of one group, we're gonna have 60 divided by 3, 20 different cells. And 12,
Yeah.
20 different
But
ideas.
what this is forcing to happen is for somebody to have the skills to bring people together.
Leadership.
Otherwise, none of those cells will be effective unless somebody can step in and get the people's trust and say, here's how we resolve some of this, here's how we should proceed. You know, and if you can get one or a few people that have the skills to do that, those are the people you want to do that, rather than having it, you know, arbitrarily assigned by whoever was available, becoming the chair of the chapter and having no skill at reconciling problems.
Well, that's one way of seeing it. Yes. Another
Yeah,
thing
and I
is-
don't know if this will work or not.
yeah, that's another thing quickly. And sorry that because it's kind of time. Another thing I just came to my mind is going to be a process to get in to make a cell legal or approve a cell. So who going to have the power to, I don't know, like expel that cells or remove it from the party, how you can solve all those things, how we're going to manage a dissident or person that really is not acting like a green person or a green cell, and now we are stuck with that cell. Do we have a process to eliminate the cells and out forever, you know, like all those little things? Anyway,
That's the, you know, Alan spoke about listing.
Yeah, we're working on
delisting,
that.
And
Yeah.
that if a cell is really egregious, putting a repudiated cell, you know, so like these people call themselves greens, but beware sort of thing.
yeah, but only people that can have access to that website or can have interest on reading that website will know about it. Meanwhile, the public, when that people go and do whatever they want to do, or whatever they did that we spell them, they're gonna maybe keep doing it on the name of the green. I don't know. It's something, a little detail there that right now maybe this is the beginning of this idea, but I would suggest let's keep thinking on that you are the person that we want to get out of this party, and what will you do with all that little ability that this new structure is going to provide us with. So I don't know. I'm concerned. That's basically the point.
Yeah, your concerns are valid.
Yeah, and the thing is that there's at some point, there is nothing we can do about some people organizing and pretending to be the Green Party. There's nothing we can do. Like, I can go out there and find my 10 friends and say, "Hey, we're the Green Party," you know, and we're going to go and, you know, kick some butt out there.
Wow.
You cannot, but if you have a cohesive Green Party organization, that's what people will be drawn. That's working in cohesion. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that based on things like the Washington Party doesn't want to work with us on the national convention, and the National Party is censoring our delegates because you know, the way they're acting. I mean, it's pretty clear we've got a dysfunctional party here. You know, we're not advancing. I see, Natalie, I know you're trying to grow the party and whatnot, and you know, just running into all these terrible obstacles. But I'm wondering, what states is it working on? I mean, we're clearly dysfunctional. What is the structure in states where they're not dysfunctional, where they're accomplishing things and advancing their candidates and whatnot? You know, what are they doing that we're not? Because it seems like we're reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just that we don't have the time to find context in all the different parties in the states and figure out which are functioning well and how they're doing it. And we got till September to come up with something, or just vote this down.
Well, I'm just thinking that our state convention, I'm really expecting it to be a shitstorm with nothing
don't
good
think
coming
so.
out of it.
I don't think so, Bob. Let's work as much as we can, identify the area problems. The bylaws need to be.
I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, no, let's put that good energy out. Kind of, if you put the energy that you're going to be fighting, that's what you're going to get. We need to put the good energy in, bring people along. We're preparing for 2024. We're developing a strategic plan. Contact Felipe for the strategic plan. Come and look at our candidates. That's what we're going to do. There will be sticking points. But if we can minimize, if we can pass a general bylaw and leave some of the things to guidelines that need still to be addressed, we will have figured it out. It's really is that there are inconsistencies within the bylaws that make all of the problems. There are some things that we have no control over, like individual behavior, we have no control over, but we can have guidelines within, structure within the bylaws that allow the flexibility and autonomy. You can do whatever you want, but we can choose to affiliate or not, or to list you or not, or recognize you or not. That's the only thing we can do.
Yeah,
And the more we organized as a positive group doing good things, these small groups, they're gonna like maybe pop up and disappear because they can't, people who are abusive or, extremists, they don't draw the folk.
A lot of this gets to my final thing, which we didn't even talk about, is I think the convention needs a lot more participation by rank and file Greens instead of just being a handful of people that got the stomach for detailed work and fighting.
Which is why I'm, that's my focus. The only thing is I have to work. I'm a single parent, it's nothing I can do. But if we can, I think that having these discussions is important. Getting to, the sooner we can get to put out the final document, the better. Let's finalize it on Monday evening.
If possible.
I mean, I'm going to put
Get closer anyway.
Let's do it. I mean, let's do it Monday.
Close as possible.
I think we're pretty close. I think that we have identified some key issues. Let's just do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and then it can be an official response and see.
Yeah, and then we can draw the people, because if we don't have a final document, it's just like it ends up in these like discussions, right? But if we have like something specific, then we can move forward. Let's just. Oh, Felipe. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording because there is no more. I think we're done with the meeting. But I wanted to ask you something.